Hello, everybody. This is going to be a fun edition of the Linh Talks Tech podcast. Linh has a lot to say. He's fired up. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever noticed that the SAP customers that are furthest behind on their S4 HANA journey are usually the same ones that are stuck with the decades-old life cycles tools? A solution manager bundles patched together, charm workflows no one understands, and documentation that lives in 7 SharePoint sites. And what's wild is that those same customers think that an S4 migration is just a project, right? A one-time event. But what it really is it's a continuum, a journey from run to transform. And the gap between those two worlds is filled by monitoring, automation, modern tooling, and not just the old soul man dinosaurs. Linh, help us break down the why about this, right? And I think you wanted to start off with defining the run versus the transform, right?
Yeah. So the core challenge for most customers, like I need to justify my upgrade or migration, and then you get the business say, I want to transform, right? I want a digital transformation, a process transformation to benefit from modern ways of doing business. So that's the business. And then IT is like, okay, well, if it's a project, we'll do it, we'll get you there, and the business will have its transformation. But what's lacking is that IT itself, the technical team, are just delivering just like they do every other project, whether it's patching or cloud migration. They're not really transforming themselves to benefit from modern processes and platforms. They are in the run mode. So what I mean is that the run mode means if you do a waterfall project, you just like create tasks and you create phase and you keep things running. I got to keep my existing production system running, and I got to manage my existing everyday problem tickets that come into my incident. I got to handle performance issues. I got to apply patch because this one critical come out and has cybersecurity implications. And then, at the end of the day, again, I'm doing it every month. I'm meeting with the business. Am I keeping the business running? So run is very much, where people who have gone live on any software like SAP knows, run is part of life, right? So you hire a bunch of people, they run the environment. It's not the same as the people that implement the solution. The implementation phase is where you get to transform. You need to see what the current issues, where you are, where you need to go, how you get there, and what would be better as is and to be, right? So if you look about transform, why it's different is that, yes, the vendor wants you to get to some new application software version. Regardless what you think, whether it's any better than your current, whatever, it's irrelevant. The business decides it wants something, right? Let's just say that. Business wants to do AI, SAP customer want to do Joule to benefit from agentic, and then they want to modernize process. They want to modernize code. They call it clean core so that they don't modify SAP core code, makes it easier to upgrade and keep up to date. All of these are benefits in the transform phase. Well, you can't transform the business and leave IT behind. To me, transform means you have to cut down the complexity in your environment. Let's say you scan your entire environment, you find out all interfaces, all your integration end to end, find out all the workload issues you may have month end, during the week, is it day of the week, who are the problem users, what are the noise and errors and alerts that go off. So that way you can take this and say, if I had a perfect world, take this and I'm going to do true transformation, then I would cut out and redesign some of this so I have less complexity, have an easier way to manage my end-to-end, like customer experience, my performance, all of that stuff. So that's a transform. So the distinction between run and transform, right? Transform, you are going to adopt something new, whether it's a people or process or platform or tool or combination of those, and do something differently, better, right?
Well, now I'd love to, and thank you so much for that, but I'd love to get into why monitoring and automation matter long before migration. Why do you need to prepare the monitoring and the automation part a good amount of time before the migration?
So I have been doing SAP migration in almost 30 years, everything from early days of client server R3 computing in the mid 90s, and even currently to the latest and greatest of SAP S4HANA version now. So that's a long time working with many different type of customers and sizes in industry. The problem I see is that most people say I have an A to Z. So I am currently here. I need to migrate, and I need to be somewhere else. That's Z. So if I give you a map, and you see on the map, and we all need to read the map and say, yeah, here's A. But maybe I'm just giving an example. I want to go from Silicon Valley, California to New York City on the East Coast, right? That's a map. I have a map.
Yeah.
But you need a lot more than a map to get from A to Z, right? You need to plan your route. You need to figure out where the efficient roads to take. Maybe I shouldn't take that overpass where in the middle of winter I might get snow out. I got to stop and put chains on. Maybe I'll go the southern route. Where do I, if I have electricity or hybrid, where do I refuel? Where do I, recharge? Where do I get my supplies? Where do I sleep? What do I need to stop to, maybe have some sightseeing? The example is that monitoring is like that. They call monitoring observability for a reason. You observe, right? You see the data, observability. If you can't see the forest through the trees because you don't have good enough monitoring data,
Uh-huh.
then what you're doing is that you are trying to go from, like I say, Silicon Valley to New York. And in the middle of the night, you have no navigation, right? You have no way of telling which is the better route because you have no monitoring. Today's date, when you say about traveling, you have GPS to guide you. But you also need to check the weather. Is it sufficient just to look at GPS? No. You need to check the weather and say, hey, I should avoid that city because my plan was to go that route. But, the weather tells me tomorrow there's going to be a hurricane coming through that area, or there may be some weird weather. So you have to intelligently operate within that goal, have a strategy and the tactics to get you there most efficiently. Otherwise, what's going to happen? You get there and maybe your car's all beat up, or maybe you take an extra 25% time. It costs you, maybe you have to backtrack because you hit some roadblocks and you have to backtrack and then you go the longer route. So we don't want to spend all of our time firefighting when we have a major project. An upgrade or migration is a major project. If you can't free your time because you're still firefighting and doing manual checks of production, right? Have a landscape that you don't quite understand. This server, is it up to date? Do I need to patch it? I don't know. I don't have any operational insights to how much data I need to migrate because I'm not monitoring. How fast am I growing? Just if your project migration takes 1 year, right? And you size it on day one, that in a year's time, when you finally go production, you will be at this database size. But what if you're wrong because you're not monitoring? You're not keeping track of how fast you are growing. You forgot that, in 3 months, my business want to roll out a new headquarter, or a new business unit, or a new business process that's going to add 25% of data volume. So halfway through the migration, you say, oops, my current production system doesn't even have enough capacity to run my current business. So I'm going to have to stop this project and spend a whole bunch of time here to procure some additional resources and provision it, bring it online, support it, monitor it, make sure just the customer can have a runway to even get that 1 year in, right? That's the number one I see is customers go to migrate, but their production system have so many issues that they're constantly distracted. They are distracted. They have to go do something, firefight something, and then the migration comes along and say, I need this report about current capacity planning. I need this report about how you do change today. How do you manage change? If I need to move code from one to here to there, you get interrupted if you're doing it manually. Or if you're doing it automated through Solution Manager Charm, for instance, a change request management,
Right.
but it's not well understood because there are some issues, then you are stopping your current migration and then dealing with that firefighting. So That's why monitoring and automation is very key to long-term prosperity. When you set on the road for any transformation project that lasts more than like a month or two, right? You're gonna have to want something that is constantly. If I want to go vacation with a peace of mind, I'm going to give this example. I want to know my house is safe. I want to know that I have my burglar alarm on. It's monitored, right? I want to know if I have pets or gardens, it's automatically watering, right? So this is how I can go on vacation with a peace of mind. But if you don't know anything, what's going on, right? And you just go and you start to worry after a couple of days or maybe a week or something. You're like, oh man, I don't know if I turn off that water. I don't know if I turn on that automated, fish feeder. Um, and how do I know my house is even safe? Did I activate the alarm? Do I have cameras that I'm keeping check of certain things? I know there's some squirrels or things at night move around in my backyard. How do I know that's so? These are time when I say monitoring, it's kind of like observability and then automations, like the things that should be automated. Maybe I should have my routine at home to turn on the lights in the front at night, even though I'm not home, so the thieves don't think that somebody went vacation for 2 weeks, right? This is very common, by the way. I don't know if you heard recently in the news. There's a lot of organized crime. They're breaking into well-known celebrity like athletes and things. They know these athletes going to play a
Yeah.
game this week,
Hmm.
right? And their
Yeah.
house gets robbed.
Yeah. I've been hearing
Think
about
about
that.
that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
monitoring should prevent that. Automation should also prevent that. Like, I automate a bunch of routines that think I'm home. I maybe have a fake dog. Maybe I have some kind of security that is alerted immediately within a minute. Again, this is a basic things that I would say from my experience. If you don't plan your migration with taking care of your current environment with some sort of automation monitoring, you're opening yourself up to a lot of kind of potential disruption or distraction, right? And when you are executing a project, typically it involves a bigger team, right? Let's say migration. They're hiring a system integrator, professional contractors, and you're paying multiple vendors to get something done in amount of time,
Yeah.
and that's a lot of money. But if you have to stop because somebody has to stop waiting for you because you have to go deal with a production problem, that is going to be a impact on the main project and the cost of that project.
Yeah. Well, and that leads me to think about, or to question you about honoring and automation in legacy environments, right? So I was wondering if you could maybe talk about those still running ECC and aging infrastructure.
Yeah. So a lot of people like cool and new sexy things, but the basic things that still need to work in your current environment, um, many things. So first, number one, do I have automated health check of my environment, top-down application, my infrastructure, my network, my security? Do I have a good grip on automated monitoring of my workload? Workload means jobs, users. Do I have a good grip of my interfaces? Systems don't live by itself. Business systems interact with other systems, internal as well as external partners, customers, vendors, sending POs to whatever, ordering something, fulfilling something, logistics. These are interface, right? And then having the proper performance baseline to know what is normal and what is not normal, right? And having the proper documentation to maintain all of this kind of inventory of systems, how they interact with each other, what happens on a normal day, what happens when it's exceptional, and how to handle those exception. These are something that the current customer who stay where they are have a problem with when they don't use modern tools, because it can't keep up with having this huge. I need to keep up to date inventory. I need to have real time dashboards. I need to have reports sent out to the critical managers at the start of the day, make sure everything is ready for business. I need to do all this. The problem with all tools is it can't deliver all of that. It does a basic thing well, like maybe just monitoring, but maybe not business process, maybe not workload related, and maybe not end-to-end scenarios telling customers real end-to-end user experience, right? maybe not even catching new things, the problems that come along. A lot of the old stuff, we know customers have built things over the years. So for instance, the very typical in SAP, oh, you hired somebody talented, so you told them to build a tool to monitor because maybe you're cheap, you didn't want to spend money on monitoring. Okay, so that guy can write some scripts, blah, 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 but he's long gone, left 3 years ago. You're still using that script, right? Except in the 3 years, you've upgraded, even you're staying on SAP old version, you must have upgraded interim patch level, and something changed. And this script, you thought it worked, but it actually broke like a year ago. And it never sent an alert, and you thought everything's fine, right? This is a very common problem. We have customers that tell us like, hey, actually, getting an alert isn't all that bad. I get worried when I hear crickets. Okay. Because like, do I know it's working or the bad? Like I talked about the home monitoring before, right?
Yes.
What if your sensor ran out of battery, right? And you didn't get alert, or maybe you got alert, you're busy and you dismissed it. Never change the battery. It's not even doing motion detection. Somebody breaks in the door, didn't trigger the sensor alert, but the motion alert is turned off because there's no battery. This is the type of thing where I know customers have built lots of custom stuff to monitor. And the longer you stay where you are and assume things are working because somebody built it for you a while ago, but now it's not working and you're not even sure it's working, or nobody can maintain it because that guy's walked, right? Who's going to go hack into his 300 lines of code, whatever, right? So this is the issue, not only in monitoring, but like we know there are workflow in customer environment that does things like the CHAM, the change request management. Suddenly, a developer requests code to be moved. Somebody approves it, and then it doesn't move. Somebody's wondering, like, this needs to be in production. I need this new code to roll out for this business unit on Monday. It's supposed to be approved on Thursday, goes in Friday. Come Monday, hey, where is my code? It's not working. It's not there. I can't run my business. And you go, oh, that part in that workflow where it actually moved the code to production? Well, all the approvals did, but that part broke. And, I didn't actually have a monitor. Nobody actually fixed the monitoring. So when that particular step in that automation broke, to notify somebody to go fix it or manually move that particular code, right? So I've had this case where people thought I implemented this and it's approved. It should go in this weekend. Monday, I'll be good. Well, Monday, all hell breaks loose. Say, hey, the business is expecting like they're going live with this new product launch and they don't have the thing to support it. Maybe the catalog is not online. I didn't move this and blah, blah. Whatever the reason is, if you're stuck to the old ways, you just always assume something works and you don't modernize it. You don't even inventory and check for it. You basically have a process that is somewhat broken. And if once you have something that's suspect, it becomes unreliable, right? It's difficult to maintain. It's difficult to upgrade. You have poor end user experience, right? And the expert who built it is long gone, right? And if you don't have a modern way to keep track of it, you are stuck with very kind of risky IT operations environment. So that's a lost productivity. There's a real cost to it. There's a real cost to the business when something fails as well, right? So instead of that, you should be preparing, documenting those, and modernize those tools, right? And those who refuse to do that, regardless whether they're migrating to cloud or whatever, then they're also asking for a problem in their current environment.
Very, very interesting. So moving along, Lin, because I know we have a lot to talk about. What are some upgrade migration best practices?
Okay, so I talk about the moving across the country, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to use that analogy a little bit more. So if you're going to move and you live in this place for like 10, 20 years, most people, what do they do when they're going to move? They're going to clean up.
Yeah.
So you got to clean up, am I going to hire 10 U-Hauls when I only need 2? Do I really want to bring along that 8 trucks full of crap? I don't even know why or who got that, whether I use it or not. So the cleanup saves you time, money, because if you don't, you're going to bring all that to your new environment. And, we know space costs time, not only the effort to lift and shift it. So relate that to SAP customers. It's data, right? if you got 20 years of data that you haven't archived out, old data, that needs to go, right? Do I need this? I only need like maybe 3 years online, maybe 7 years long term. I can have long-term archiving, blah, blah, blah. Much less expensive than moving all that data to new SAP HANA, which loads it into memory, and every bit and byte of memory, we know how much that costs. So we've had customers where they migrate and end up with like this huge 12 terabyte, 20 terabyte SAP HANA system because they migrated everything. They say, I don't have time to archive. So what's the cost of not doing that? Are you paying for that infrastructure on cloud, which is actually a lot more expensive than something that you already amortize off traditional on-premise type environment, right?
Yeah.
So you want to remove things like users, consultant organization came in, onboarded 20 people on a project, they finish, but you never clean up those users. Are you going to carry all those users to your new target environment, right? What about printers that no longer even connected to the to the network, right? Some people like, bought a 10-year-old HP laser printer. At the time was sexy to print. Now nobody prints anymore because you got a PDF. But the printer is still left in SAP definition, and along with all all images of spool images of all those print jobs that I print like a year ago. Should that be migrated? No, right? All of these things, you have decommission interface, you have connectors that go out to some third party that you migrated. Maybe you migrated payroll from SAP SuccessFactors to Workday. You have this all interface that's still connected to SuccessFactors. Who knows? Nobody knows why it's still there. These are the things we need to clean up. Otherwise, when you migrate, you might accidentally activate something inadvertently, right? You should delete all this, reduce migration risk, right? Also doing that really prioritizes what needs to move and what doesn't need to move, right? And also from a coding, the number one challenge in lots of SAP customers who have customized a lot of their SAP systems is the amount of custom code. Custom code means I didn't like the way that was implemented. I wrote something else, and that custom code now lives in the system. Every time I upgrade, the last 10 years, it's been upgraded. And now I'm going to migrate to S4, where some of that coding technology is outdated. It's replaced by something new functionality in SAP. But if you don't inventory that, how do you know how much code, how many programmer do you need to hire to even convert that code to working on new S4HANA? So we see a huge effort from development team. They first have to inventory all the code, customize, right? And then which one do I need? I modify this. Do I need that? In SAP, it offers standard functionality now. I need to remove this code and use the new code, right? So that's a lot of effort there. But without some clear process to baseline it, to put it in a repository of thousands of things that you have, and manage that from a project, you're pretty much bringing the old stuff over to the new environment, right? And hope everything works. One more thing about the best practice, as I said before, but performance is number one. Who in the world, and I'm gonna call out some people, not by name, but like who would want to spend, let's say, I don't know, $10 million, migrate a very large customer to a new environment, right? And then on day one have performance problem, right?
Yeah.
So I'm talking about best practices during a migration. A lot of customers who cut corners end up paying the price ultimately is the lack of what we call performance validation, right? If you monitor, you have health check, you know what's important, what is your business 10 most important business process. You have to measure how they work today, baseline that, test it, tune it in the new environment during your test run or your performance testing phase. But a lot of customers today, they skip the performance testing. They assume that some new system is going to run faster. Not true.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Tune system run faster. Just migrating to something new doesn't mean it's going to be faster, especially you carrying old code and all kind of legacy stuff over with the optimization. So that's the number one thing I see also post go live is performance, and people like comparing, hey, this thing runs so much faster in the old system. So who wants to go tell the CFO that you spent $10 million and this thing runs faster in the old place?
Yeah.
No one,
Nobody,
right?
right?
So
Exactly.
that's kind of I'd say best practice around. And I wrote best practice performance paper available
Mhm.
for download on IT-Conductor blog site for many years, and people download them for looking at what are the best practices of things to look at for performance before you migrate. Because without doing that, you are kind of assuming everything is okay. So I wouldn't bet your job on it.
Yeah, that's very good for all those people who are delaying and
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
pushing it off. It's really good for them to know. So I was wondering, do you have any cases, to talk about, like unprepared customers versus prepared customers? Any kind of examples to give to illustrate these points, Lynn?
Yeah, I give you most most recent example. I was working with a customer. Again, I won't name who. Another third party vendor who provided service for this customer. The customer is in the middle of a migration to SAP Rise, and they actually said we need, as part of our modernization, be able to, of course, make any transformation changes on their custom code and transport that to the new environment. Essentially carrying what they want out of this custom code, modernize it, and then have it in the new system. So to do that, SAP had this product for many years called Solution Manager. And in Solution Manager, there are two main areas. One is technical monitoring. The second one is the change request manager, CHAM.
Hmm.
Okay, that is supposed to automate moving the code configurations to between systems. Well, what happened is that this customer, because he doesn't want to modernize the tooling aspect, he just want to move and then bring the old tool along. Well, the old tool itself can't really be put into the hosted SAP environment, so they have to install a new solution manager.
Hmm.
And I said to him, why are you doing this? Because like, if the only two function you use it for today is for monitoring, there are many third-party solutions, including IT-Conductor, that can do very well in a new cloud environment, the SAP observability and monitoring. So that requirement is not valid for installing another solution manager. And then secondly, if you say you need to do transport or change request management, there are also this problem that has been solved by many, many vendors, IT-Conductor included, we call CHI, Change Automation Intelligence, that are much simpler to use and can keep up with all the coding, configuration changes, and transport them to multiple places. But the customer insisted, because I said, I know best because I've been using CHAM for many years. I want CHAM. Okay, so because I want CHAM, I'm gonna configure. But unbeknownst, this what I call unprepared customer. Even though I say, well, to do it on prem is a different story. It might something that took me maybe a day to configure out of the box the solution manager, this change request management, connected a simple development QA production, and have transport configured on prem. On the hosted SAP environment with Rise, now it's basically outsourced to SAP for infrastructure management. The customer is now responsible for configuring the application. Yet 2 weeks after trying to configure this thing, it's still not configured, because this is normally a shared responsibility. And what it means is that every little thing you hit a problem here, maybe the hostname didn't look right, maybe it's not running a particular agent I could connect to, something that would have worked on-prem has now issues in the cloud because there are firewalls, there's different people involved. The hostname, I can't touch the database or OS, I need to get SAP involved. This thing went on 2 weeks, actually more than 2 weeks. And unbelievably, they still don't have CHAM working. To me, you've now delayed the project. Nobody can transport using this thing that you thought you knew very well on-prem. So the problem I'd see that there is one example of why are people migrating, spending millions going to cloud and not modernizing their tool stack that support that IT operations. Because if you just bring in the best of class solution around change management, around observability monitoring, around integration type, you could have a best solution up and running very quickly. Instead of bringing your legacy stuff that kind of work on-prem didn't quite work fully because you don't have the resource to manage it. Now you want to bring that same problem to the target in a new migrated environment just because you're comfortable with that. So to me, I think customer need, one other thing is to be prepared. You have to be prepared to be uncomfortable. If you just prepared by being comfortable with what you know, then you are also prepared to pay for the delays of the unknown. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. It does
Yeah.
make perfect sense. Yeah.
Same thing can be applied to many things, system refresh, like which is typical in a environment. When you're migrating, upgrading, you always need this system copy with new data. All of these things has tooling can accelerate using automation. But if you're used to doing the old way, and I'm going to carry my old way to my new transformative environment, it's not going to help you go any faster. In fact, it will actually slow you down and cause problems in the project timeline. So I see that for prepared customers, they are not looking at only migrating the core application. They are looking at transforming their IT operations support process for life cycle, to maintain it, to patch it, to snooze systems that don't cost more cloud compute, to be able to do monitoring, automated dashboard, automated reporting, automated health check, running automated change management, so they don't have human in the loop. They just get process workflow approved, and then it flows through the system automatically. And if it doesn't, it automatically notify you. You can easily support that, and also have third-party vendors that support the end-to-end success of that workflow. So that's a prepared customer. So I think the message, again, I'm going to reiterate, if you're going to modernize something that's going to be great in application and functionality for the business, take the opportunity to modernize your people, process, and platform for the IT operations aspect. Otherwise, you are not going to do well by handling a new environment with old tools.
Right. Exactly. Okay. Well, this has really been very informative, and I was just wondering if you could give us your final takeaways. The build, your run, transform playbook.
Yeah, I think I can. To run well, you have to transform your current process. To modernize that, you have to modernize your observability, your monitoring, and automation is very critical, especially in the new AI age, right? So you have agentic AI, you have many things that are running. So think about this. If today you're only doing 100 things and you're monitoring a particular way, in the new environment where you may even have agentic AI workflows, you have things that are going off and agents is doing something on your behalf, you even need more observability. Because who wants to hand over the key and not know what's going on,
Yeah.
right? So that modernizing of the monitoring and automation is critical, right? And then secondly, if you're doing change, as we know, many incidents, and in this past 1 week here, we had a major outage on the internet, the Cloudflare.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, Cloudflare knocked out, even things like X, True Social, a lot of these were impacted, and we know how ubiquitous this thing was.
Even
Well,
ChatGPT.
yeah. And you know what the root cause of it was? It was a configuration file that got too big.
DNS configuration file, right?
Instead of I think the maximum size supported for this config was supposed to be 4 gig or something. And unbeknownst, it was bigger. And then when they deployed it, it had a problem. It grew, and then it blew up and it fell over, it crashed, right? So talk about monitoring. You can't be a world-class organization and not monitor the files of your critical file size, right? If 40 gig is a limit, this just reminds me in the all Windows NT days, if you remember what Windows NT was.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, there was a file limit like 4 gig or whatever it was, right? And it's critical. We always monitor the size. And long before you get there, you get notified so that you can address the problem. I shouldn't push out something that's going to go over the limit and cause it to crash, right? So that's classic number one, where monitoring becomes important, right? And secondly, change management. Who approved this change, right? This change was pushed out just like the many changes. Fingers crossed it's Friday. We don't have a problem. But some organizations, I won't name again, push out changes on a Friday and assume everything's going to be fine. And, change management has to be automated, not only to automate the change, but automate the rollback, right? if this thing goes wrong, also automate me putting in the old stuff and making, just have minimum impact. So don't go for SAP customer. I'd say, look beyond your solution manager, look beyond your charm, right? Because those things were built long time ago. They still work in the old days. There's new things coming along, Cloud ALM, SAP's cloud version, but it's not quite ready for all the different types of scenarios. There are many third-party solutions. Again, you don't have to take our solution for it, but there are many third-party solutions that work well. Do best of breed. Just like today, nobody just say, I'm going to go just on AI, use ChatGPT only. I don't use Claude. I don't use Gemini, right? No, you're going to take the best answers, right? That gives you the best flexibility. And the third thing I want to say from a takeaway is like, once you have the monitoring tool, instrument your baseline, right? Your legacy system, you should know very well so that any vendor come along, help you migrate. You already have data, live data. You can tell them, they can look at it and go, I know exactly what I'm migrating, right? I know what baseline to exist and I know what performance should be on the target because I have this baseline to be monitoring against it for success. So if you migrate without clear success factor, not just meaning that I got you from A to Z, but I got you to A to Z on time, efficiently. Your car didn't break down or look like a piece of trash afterwards, right? That will put you well on the path to success in the new environment, right? And use all this data input. Data is gold.
Right.
When I say data is gold in the new age of AI, data is gold. That is your assets, right? A lot of people know this when they sign up for some free online platform, right? It's free because your data you given to them, right? It's not free. They're using your data, right, to drive mission critical decision making or whatever to market you something. So the data should be used to drive the migration planning, the execution of how much data am I moving, what's critical, what's not critical, what sequencing to do, right? And then next thing to know, once you have this monitoring, you know what breaks. Put in automation, right? Automate what you can in terms of something that falls over often, automate the recovery. Something that should be implemented as a digital process and we get away from relying on people manually doing some steps, that should be automation of workflow orchestration, right? Because next version of this is that we have agentic workflow orchestration, right? But agentic workflow orchestration relies on what? Relies on traditional automation tooling actions that are taken by single agents. And single agents are nothing more than you implementing something that you would do manually by yourself. But now you automate it, you give to an agent, you say, agent, go do ABC. That only knows how to do ABC. If you want to do DEF, that's a separate agent, right? So until you can build an orchestration workflow, this is an area IT-Conductor is actually well suited for, is the agentic workflow orchestration. It's because we already know applications, what needed, the tools, and combine them together in an agent workflow orchestration platform that can help not only contextually solve the problem after detection, but also assigning the best solution for the problem to automatically recover from the scenarios. So that's what I say is automate everything, right? Because that's going to be very important as the input catalog to your agentic workflow orchestration roadmap, right? And then, of course, the last part is any migration is successful only because you get the right stakeholder involved. The financial leadership, you can't go halfway through because you didn't communicate. It's going to take this much time, this much energy, and also this much resource, money, people, right? And then you need to modernize operation. Put in all your tooling requests. I need new tool for monitoring. I need new tool for change management. I need new tool for automating the deployments of CI/CD, pipeline, etc. Whatever it is, don't go after the project already started approved because the business wants something and you didn't ask for your IT operation transformation. Then you're going to end up with no budget and you're going to do things the old way again, right? So that's, I think, to me, my takeaway in recommending what is the best practices for transforming your run today to a transformed target playbook.
That's fantastic. And I think that, as we move forward, more and more, SAP installations should be able to get the information that you're exposing here for them, through continuing to talk about this topic. I know you're passionate about this topic. It kind of doesn't make sense that people are not modernizing, they're not automating, they're not monitoring. So thank you so much for sharing this information. And I'm sure we'll be talking about a part 2 of this topic in a future episode of the Linh Talks.
My last comment on that tip is that if you don't automate, you are going to be automated.
There you go. That's the soundbite right there. If you're not automating, you are going to be automated. That's perfect.
Until next time.
Yeah, we'll see everybody in the next episode of Linh Talks Tech.